Greetings and salutations, my fellow Americans. I am Robert Vincent Brannum. I am a retired veteran. My fellow Americans, my fellow veterans, and my fellow Black Americans. The 2024 political presidential campaign is raging. The campaign rhetoric and advertising are tossing high. The political sky is overshadowed with blackness and court dates. My fellow Americans, my fellow veterans, and my fellow Black Americans. It would seem no shelter or help is nigh. The political winds and waves are like storm-tossed seas or demons to swallow decent people where they stand. My fellow Americans, my fellow veterans, and my fellow Black Americans. Former President Donald Trump and his MAGA allies seek to ravage American politics with lies, racism, bigotry, support for rape, sexual assault of women, anti Semitism, and Islamophobia. They are vicious, vengeful, violent, and vulgar. My fellow Americans, my fellow veterans, and my fellow Black Americans, Donald Trump and his MAGA cohorts do not offer any constructive, conservative driven policies. Rather, they promote hate, fear, white supremacy, racism, bigotry, sexual assault of women, and authoritarianism. They have no solutions or positive policy initiatives. Donald Trump and his MAGA cultures do not support American greatness built on justice, equality, fairness, freedom for all, and truth. When Donald Trump and MAGA speak of making America great again, they envision an America deeply rooted in the darkness of separation, segregation, and seclusion. My fellow Americans, my fellow veterans, and my fellow Black Americans. There is no peace with Donald Trump. Donald Trump travels and traffics in despair, deception, division, dishonor, demagoguery, and anti democracy. Donald Trump and his MAGA acolytes do not support the Constitution, freedom, justice, equality, and truth. Donald Trump is a liar, a rapist, a racist, a bigot, sexually assaults women, a fraud, a supporter of violence and white supremacy. To all those progressives marching and championing the cause for the people of Palestine and a ceasefire in Gaza, know this: Donald Trump is not a friend of the people of Palestine or a supporter of a ceasefire. Donald Trump only cares about himself and grifting. My fellow Americans, my fellow veterans, my fellow Black Americans, a vote for Donald Trump is a vote against truth, freedom, democracy, and God. My fellow Americans, my fellow veterans, and my fellow Black Americans, let not your hearts be troubled, neither let them be afraid. My fellow Americans, my fellow veterans, and my fellow Black Americans, Donald Trump is not the way, the truth, or the life. If you follow Donald Trump, you are on a path to prison. Think of the Capitol Hill insurrectionists indicted and found guilty. Remember the names: Stephen Bannon, Peter Navarro, Michael Cohen, Paul Manafort, George Papadopoulos, Roger Stone, Rick Gates, Alan Weisselberg. Consider the Georgia roll call of the dishonored: Rudy Giuliani, Ray Smith, Jenna Ellis, Sidney Powell, Kathy Latham, Kenneth Cheesebro, David Schaffer, John Eastman, Scott Hall, Harrison Floyd, Mark Meadows, Trevian Kutti, Sean Steele, Jeffrey Clark, Michael Rome, Misty Hampton, Stephen Clifford Lee, and Robert Keeley. My fellow Americans, my fellow veterans, and my fellow Black Americans, while the truth is the presidential election of 2020 was not stolen from Donald Trump, there is a clear attempt by Donald Trump and his MAGA followers to steal democracy from the American people. My fellow Americans, my fellow veterans, and my fellow Black Americans. Donald Trump and his MAGA world followers cannot accept truth and democracy because neither Donald Trump nor his MAGA minions see, respect, nor know these values. But you, my fellow Americans, veterans, and Black Americans, know these principles, for they live with you and are in you. The Constitution, let us not be orphans, it guides our path because the Constitution, freedom, justice, and truth live, we as Americans also live. My fellow Americans, my fellow veterans, my fellow Black Americans, from this day, this Easter, realize whatever is true, whatever is noble, whatever is right, whatever is pure, whatever is lovely, whatever is admirable, if anything is excellent or praiseworthy, think about such things. Freedom, democracy, truth, honor, integrity, the Constitution. My fellow Americans, veterans, and Black Americans, stand with President Joe Biden and Vice President Kamala Harris and Democrats. Stand up for America. Thank you.